The Long Way Home, Chapter 45. The Bittersweet of Farewell. Orcs was an even less settled world than the Exarch Reformation than Zumia. But it was the location of the best academy that Advocate Lord Merrick James and Recorder Lady Testamentum Magdalene could afford. The best military academy they could afford. The planet didn't even have a station yet. It was, however, the destination for their daughter. Vincent had been surprised to hear from the young noble that she wanted to abandon the path her parents and lineage had set out for her. Then again, their lineage, as legal professionals, was only 3 generations old. Not that long a run to make a break or rejection of tradition. On the other hand, if they were too changeable, they'd have terribly hard times establishing those traditions. Vincent didn't dwell on it too much. He simply hoped that the path she walked now would lead her well. As it turned out, being parents to one of the heroic children who risked their lives to warn everybody about the impending attack by the Grove Controller enabled Merrick James and Testamentum Magdalene to afford more than a pittance for educating their daughter. Not that the Empress's gift was useful for anything else, but they were more than happy to put it to its intended use. The old man had received notice that he and Cadet were entitled to a similar gift, but when he brought it up to Helen, she laughed him off with assurances that the ship didn't need any additional funding to absorb Cadet's scholarship. For himself, Vincent just decided he'd like to have the ceremonial stone from the Empress of the Exarch Reformation. Vincent kept thinking about the children's futures as Orcs came closer and closer. He wasn't surprised to see that his former little crew was downright morose as the date loomed ever closer. But Isis Magdalene had the sense to talk about her departure with them beforehand, so it wouldn't be a shock. She even tried to spin a positive face on things. Vincent knew that he was going to miss the girl, though. He knew he would regret the missed chance to get to know her parents better, too. Of course, the kids would keep in touch, and he'd see her now and then through the connection. But he expected Merrick James and Testamentum Magdalene would be busy with their own affairs. Fair enough. Vincent himself would have to full plate with Cadet for a time yet. Him and his budding relationship with Rose, they'd been stepping out for nearly a month by the time Isis Magdalene announced her impending departure, and Vincent thought it was going well. A bright spot to balance, if not darkness, then dimmer shades. Another bright spot, Rose had found work in one of the kitchens above decks, one of the focused around Terran comfort foods. Mainly, that appeared to mean the fried foods, but the Xenos were infatuated by it by all counts. In addition to meeting for morning coffee and feeding him and Cadet dinner nightly, Rose found times to walk with Vincent during the times when he made himself useful to whoever needed things moved or fetched. A very good sign, all things considered. He found himself wanting to try for a kiss lately. As the day of Isis Magdalene's departure loomed closer and closer, however, such amorous intentions were left to simmer. Instead, he focused on Cadet, who was moping about more and more. His studies were suffering for it, and even the very good simple cooking at Rose's table failed to fully stimulate his appetite. With most things, Vincent gave the boy his space, and he guessed that in truth he took his troubles to the chief. However, about 5 days from the impending departure, when he finally despaired of seeing Cadet do anything other than mope, he said, "Son, what's eating you?"
"You know what's eating me," the boy muttered.
"Say it anyway."
"It's not forever, but I'm sad anyway," he snapped irritably. "And I'm mad about being sad. Then I get sad about getting mad."
"Yeah," Vincent sighed. "Goodbye sucks."
"Yeah,"
Cadet muttered angrily. After a minute of glowering at nothing in particular, he ventured,
"But we still talk, we'll call. That makes it better, a little bit."
"It's normal. You know you'll miss her. You know you won't see her every day anymore. That makes a difference," Vincent explained gruffly. He tried to make his voice soothing while he spoke, then wasn't sure he succeeded.
"She has to go,"
Cadet blurted out.
"I wish she didn't, but she has to. She'll be a leader like Jason one day. Oh, like Jason's dad. But for people. So, that means she has to go learn how to do it."
Vincent ambled over to the sofa, where Cadet was huddled in on himself, and sat down next to him. "So that's it, the future. Anybody being officers in the military. You'll have plenty of time." Cadet hunched his shoulders, and Vincent knew he'd struck true.
"I'm in the baby class," he muttered darkly. "Everybody's going to leave me behind and go off to do things and—"
"You're ahead of your age in math." The boy shrugged as if it made no difference. "And you're growing faster than those kids. They're not babies, and honestly, the standards on this ship are higher than most places. There's a reason the Chief and Tran stepped up like they did. You're lucky compared to them."
"Me?"
he asked incredulously. "Yep. You have natural talent. I didn't dare tell you so when we were trying to get home, but you pilot better than most trained adults.
Why?
Because if I put it in your head that you were too good to get caught, all that talent would go sloppy, and you wouldn't have worked so hard. You're a natural at piloting, but you're not bad at hand and hard work either. Just keep on using that talent, and when you see the little lady again, you won't feel left behind. She'll be just as proud to be your friend.
When I see her again,
Cadet muttered pensively. Speaking of friends, Vincent rumbled, normally you'd go to the chief to get talked out of a funk. What gives?
Jason, Cadet said, mumbling. Sometimes he just stands at a viewport and watches the colors, not saying anything or looking at anybody. He just stands there.
You know, you can try and talk to him like he does for you. Cadet huddled in closer on himself.
But if I say the wrong thing?
Then he'll tell you so, and you'll grow. They fell into a quiet for a time after that. Then eventually Vincent prodded him to get back to his reading. It seemed to work. But Vincent knew better than to see the boy's mood turn around and after one conversation. He did, however, make note to talk with the chief. It just so happened that he found a chance to do just that when he went to the dining room for lunch. The chief stood in the crew dining room looking out of the enormous view screen that took up most of the port wall like it held the secrets of the universe. The old man stepped up beside Chief and looked at the chaotic swirling of the hyperspace bee colliding with the Among the Star-Tide We Sing's reality bubble. Chit for a chat, Vincent offered. Keep your chit, chatting's free. The chief softly replied. What's up? You, cadet, think something's bothering you. Not bothered, exactly. Did you know I'm seeing a counselor? No, but I could guess your parents would want you to. I picked a door randomly. I got Dr. Elisa. We got along, I think. She was Sarkor, void-born work, not dirt side. That means ship rescue and station disasters. Brave, that. Braver than what I want to do. Civvies don't get it. They think that facing down the enemy with a weapon is the bravest service there is. I guess I shouldn't talk like that, since I'm still a civvy too, but there it is. Trying to pluck the living from the fingers of death in the void itself, the boy shivered. SAR work only takes the bravest, whether the work's void-born or dirt side. At least in an infantry, you can shoot the enemy. She's brave, braver than me, so I can trust her. Did you ask her about SAR work and get more than you bargained for? Vincent asked carefully. Nah, I knew this about SAR work already, kinda. I saw what it did to uncles and the elder cousin. So, why the, pensive vigil? She told me I should stop putting my grief off for later. So, I've been thinking about things. About the long way. About the victims. And about Carl. I think that was good advice. I thought you knew you did the right thing, Vincent softly told him, willing the boy to understand. I know. It's still a loss. I never got to meet my cousin. Would he have been my friend? Would he have taught me things, learned from me? What could have been? It's good that I said things for him over his face's grave. I just miss what could have been. I told you reminded me of him once, Vincent said, with no less care. I remember. He was earnest and brave and a little hot-headed, like you. He also wanted to make me and his mom proud of him. He wanted to live up to us like you. Carl wasn't nearly so disciplined as you are, though. I think he would have taught you how to goof off. I can goof off, Jason said defensively, with a glance away from the view screen. It's just that I'm in way behind on my studying, and Vi's still stuck in medbay, and cadet's awful for us. Vincent couldn't help himself. He laughed. That got an exasperated grunt from the boy before Vincent said, That's what I mean. You don't ever go a minute without thinking about how you can help somebody. Even the joke you played on me was a way to help. So what? So you don't really ever goof off, Vincent pointed out. I guess you're born responsible. Being a responsible person is a good thing, the chief muttered, as he kicked the deck with the toe of his new shoe. 5 days. How are you holding up? I'm regulating, the boy said, and in answer to Vincent's skeptical look he elaborated. I'm going to miss her, and I'm not looking forward to farewell, but this isn't the first or last time I've said goodbye to family for a time. I'll be okay. Thanks. I'm not good at words, Chief, but I had to check. I meant for telling me more about Carl. Thanks. It helps. Jason waited for Vincent to go off to find more work to do and wondered whether the old man knew that he was drawing pay as a shuttle pilot already. It would be rude to ask. Maybe the old man just got restless when he wasn't doing something. If so, Jason could understand that. He watched the chaos of the hyperspace sea held at bay by the Weezing's hyperdrive for a while longer. He found comfort in the inscrutable beauty. It was a fine thing to let himself feel the loss, so far as he figured, but dwelling on it was another thing. He shook himself, snagged a sandwich wrap, and strode to the med bay. He was pretty sure that Vi was about to be discharged, and he wanted to be there. Along the way, Trondre clambered up a ladder and fell into step beside him, and he finally found himself smiling at a bundle of custom anodized aluminium crutches in various colors. "Finally coming out of your cave, Tran."
"The machine shop is hardly a cave, Jason," she told him with a roll of her eyes. "I wanted to make them myself. Volcray kept trying to take over, so it took way longer."
"He's been wanting an apprentice," Jason said, "and you probably learned some stuff."
"He dotes on me too much," she shrugged. "He's not even in the clan troll."
"But he's crew. Besides, that brings the total up to 4.
"Total of what?"
Trondre asked, a little startled. "Friends you've made without any help."
Trondre's cheeks flushed lilac as she slowly nodded. At length she said, "You sure about this?"
"We won't really get a chance again for a while. We won't all be together again for a while."
"What about you?"
Jason shrugged uncomfortably and asked, "What about me?"
"Above decks?"
"I'll be fine."
Trondre gave him a skeptical look, and he said,
"I know folks will stare. I figure at least a couple of passengers have got aboard to catch a glimpse of a George. Maybe me, maybe Dad, or Papap, or Uncle Victor, or Nana, or any of us. I can't hide forever."
"You look like you did."
"It's a fight," Jason interrupted. "A fight with myself."
Trondre nodded sagely before she mused. "It might not be such a bad thing to always keep watch. I'll try to keep an eye on, too."
"Tran, you're a gem."
"Hush you."
They reached the medbay and made sure to keep out the way to cause no disturbance to the patients. Jason even didn't laugh at one of the medtechs shouting in exasperation at a particularly stupid injury. When they slid into Vi's recovery room without incident, they found Isis Magdalene already waiting for them.
"Are you certain?" she asked. "I have found this deck full of its own delight, and I find no need to impose further." "We can wait until I'm stronger,"
Vi agreed with her brown eyes full of concern as they fell on Jason. "I'm sure," Jason said, trying not only to let the warmth he felt at their concern touch his voice, and none of the irritation he felt at their coddling. Isis Magdalene must have caught some of that, because she said,
"I shall be sure to tell you if I find a crowd too distressing."
"Isn't Cadet coming?" "I suppose he's probably still working on his homework," Jason said easily. "We can wait on him if he doesn't beat Mom." "I thought Aunt Bridget wasn't putting duty while she was on leave," Trondre blurted out. "She's not," Jason snorted with amusement, "except for overseeing Vi's case."
"Don't you say it,"
Trondre said with a warning finger waving under Jason's nose.
"I don't want to hear anything about being in a cave."
"I wasn't gonna," Jason lied, unable to hide his smirk. She scowled at him. His grin grew. "Ah, Jason. Glad you're here." Jason flinched at his mother's tone, and when he turned to face her, Bridget wore an expression of implacable certainty. "We need to pull some samples to clone your eye." Jason thumbed the embroidered St. Aidan's cross across his eye patch and grumbled, "I can just wait until I'm 16 and get an org. Or you can stop being stubborn and take a perfectly good eye."
"Sorry I'm late,"
Cadet said as he squeezed into the little room.
"Where are your parents and the pups?" "Nap time," Vi supplied. "They figured out that they can't hang you out here all the time."
"Well, Ma, can't have everyone waiting on me," Jason exclaimed, and a false grin on his face and a maternal glare. "Vi, since your parents aren't here, you're not exactly discharged. They'll need to sign the discharge for that, but you're free to go anywhere aboard the ship except for engineering and weapon stations." The children lost little time in drawing Vi out of the hospital bed and into a wheelchair so that they could speed her away to change into some proper clothes. Jason came Bridget's call on their heels. "Don't think that you can just procrastinate for 4 years." One change of clothes for Vi, in the guest quarters where her parents were staying later, and Vi was insisting that Trondre couldn't go dressed in a greasy jumpsuit. That led to going to her quarters in a light water section, and the other 2 girls spending what Jason and Cadet thought to be an inordinately long time picking out something suitable. They threatened to do the same thing to him next, but he flatly refused, saying dryly, "I haven't a need to look pretty."
"Do you not?"
Isis Magdalene asked, and for some reason that earned a laugh from the girls. Jason exchanged an exasperated look with Cadet.
"Where are we going first?"
Vi asked through her mirth. Her smile proved infectious, and Jason said, "First ice cream. All the best stuff's above decks. We run luxury passenger liner after all." And so they went above deck into the public areas of the ship, beginning with an ice cream parlor where Isis Magdalene had a first sundae with Xeno-safe chocolate syrup, of course, and Vi got the tallest ice cream cone on the menu. Jason and Trondre were more realistic with what they ordered, and therefore neither of them suffered brain freeze. And Jason admitted to sometimes visiting the parlor just to watch Xenos make exactly that mistake with their first ice cream. When the two overeager girls realized that they wouldn't be able to finish before it all melted, they allowed themselves to be dragged to the next attraction. Jason made sure to temper their pace to an arcade where the passenger kids shot them dirty looks for using their ship's IDs to play games without buying tokens, even though they failed to notice that they never won any tickets. The guests found delight in the more physical games of Terran origin, skee-ball, whack-a-mole, darts, and others. The video game cabinets were less attractive, and Jason figured that it was probably because they could be played at home just as well. Before they got tired of that, Jason pulled them along to a room with a wide stage whereby and Isis Magdalene were dazzled by traditional Star Sailor blade dancing. The two oohed and ahed at the grace with which each of the 6 men handled their false swords while avoiding dealing each other what would be grievous wounds by fractions of an inch. Cadet's beak hung open like he'd forgotten to shut it, while the audience showered the dancers in approbation. Again and again, Jason drew them from entertainment to entertainment, from delight to delight, until it was time for dinner and the children's return to the quarters for bed. By point of fact, he'd shown them so much fun that he carried by piggyback while Trandre fought yawns and carried her crutches. Jason did feel the eyes of strangers on him every moment he was above decks, though, and that itch between his shoulders that warns of danger, too. However, he was able to keep his calm, and when this very passenger seemed to hide the threats, he was able to stop and look, and found no such threats. He knew that it was an effect of his journey, and he knew that when a knot of 10 or so people surged towards him, they weren't charging grub victims, but his heart pounded all the same. It wasn't just too much fun that had him exhausted by the time he'd seen everyone to their doors. He decided that he'd postpone throwing himself into his berth long enough to write his thoughts on the day down in his journal. Best not to break a good habit. He was glad he'd done it. Jason, and he supposed the other children too, quickly fell back into routine. Studying, exercise, and entertainment, even as those things overlapped on account of Helen George's creative use of family retired firm services or hired tutors. He suspected that she was helping Vincent get his qualifications to be a sergeant in Mountaineers. Jason always liked the fact that the Mountaineer ranks were styled off the E scale. Their next foray in the crew quarters deck was, of course, the day of departure. Jason felt glad that he'd made sure that Isis Magdalene's memories of his home included at least one day of pure fun. By that day, he found something of a surprise. Vincent stood in the shuttle bay beside one of the Wee Sing's dozen passenger shuttles, looking sharp in his ship's uniform. It turned out Vincent had learned that he had a job at some point. The bay was rather crowded, in point of fact. Iris and Lawrence were there as captain and head of the family, respectively, as well as their sons and daughters, and their husbands and wives. Also present were a goodly portion of the men and women Jason had come to know as aunts and uncles, whether they were his great-uncles or third cousins twice removed, depending on age and role more than the strict nature of the relation. Of course, anybody with children had brought them along. It was proper, just like a welcome. A farewell should have as many hearts as can be spared present. Iris and Lawrence stepped forward, arm in arm. Their grey-haired, iron-hard faces, softened by fond warmth, mingled with sorrow at parting as much as a hammer and anvil can be softened. They halted before Marek James and Tashmentum Magdalene, and Iris began, "You came to thee among the star-tides, we sing, as guests on her decks and in our hearts. The guest right is fulfilled, for we have reached the place of your choosing." Jason's grandmother reached out and took Marek James by his shoulder and kissed his left cheek, then his right. Then she repeated the gesture with Tashmentum Magdalene, but she kissed the top of Isis Magdalene's head. "You now part from our decks, but not our hearts," Lawrence continued. "I now name Vincent Phoebus to pilot the shuttle that shall see you to your door. I now name Jason George, Trandre Drildre, my daughter of Siam, daughter of Eve and Casarica, and Manatee Paradise. Cadet Remus, to see you to that door in safety and honor, as we cannot all go that far. Now I say to you, farewell." "Farewell," Jason said, and his small voice was swallowed by the voices of family around him. When the family fell silent, Lawrence repeated his wife's gestures in the same order. "Farewell," Lawrence said again before he continued. "May you chart your course by stars fixed in your hearts. May your course bring you to our decks again one day." "Farewell," Jason said with all his kin there. "May you chart your course by the stars fixed in your hearts. May your course bring you to our decks again one day." "God keep you and stay strong," Iris said, her snapping voice full of warmth. Marek James leaned down as Isis Magdalene whispered in his ear. Then he said, "Farewell. I leave your ship, and take with me the honor you have shown. Farewell." Maxwell pushed Jason forward, and Jason shot his father a smile over his shoulder as he trotted forward. When he got closer, he saw that Isis Magdalene's cheeks glistened wetly. Once he reached her, he reached out and took her hand and whispered, "Don't cry, Isis. It's not forever. We'll meet again." "Part of the ceremony?" she asked under her breath. "I didn't read the correct response." Vincent watched his former little crew emerge from the crowd of his new family and held back tears. The chief strode with confidence and purpose. He could practically see a major general's epaulets on the boy's shoulders. Tondre walked with her head held up high and her back straight, and Vincent's heart swelled with pride when he recalled the girl who wouldn't quite meet his eyes. Cadet had his eyes fixed on his adoptive father, and Vincent knew that his son was trying not to let his feathers stand on end from nerves. Vi came on last. She hardly struggled with her crutches at all. There already was Isis Magdalene between her parents, struggling to hold back tears in the face of this magnificent send-off. Vincent felt a touch of moisture in his eyes at the realization that this could very well be the last time he would see all 5 of them together. The aging pilot caught what Chief whispered to Isis Magdalene and a question as he reached the shuttle first, and caught the answer, "Nah, it's just between us." "Then do I have your oath on it?" Isis Magdalene tremulously whispered back. "Aye, I promise. We'll meet again one day, in person," Jason whispered with a grin as she turned with her parents to board the shuttle. Lawrence had explained it to him, so Vincent waited. He waited for Isis Magdalene to board the shuttle. He waited for the other 4 kids to board. Nasty. He waited for the family to filter out of the bay. At last, he boarded the shuttle and cycled its loading hatch closed while his passengers all settled into the first row of seats and strapped themselves in. He had a grin at that. They weren't likely to need the straps unless he decided to put the shuttle through its paces, but the rules were the rules. When he sat down in the seat, he said, "Cadet, you could sit with the others. More time before she leaves." The massive door on the starboard wall flickered blue as the atmosphere-retaining force field came to life, then began to yawn open and expose the inky blackness of space. "It's almost like it was, you and me up here, them back there. It's the last time it can be like this," Cadet said. "The last time," Vincent agreed as he brought the shuttle up off the deck and guided it into the void. He banked to port and pitched downwards, and the golden orb with space spattering on emerald and sapphire of a primarily desert world filled the view screen. He didn't have anything else to say as he carefully followed the flyplan to the planet's only spaceport where smaller cargo haulers and passenger liners were landed, as well as a number of ships about the size of the Long Way. A great many about her size. The city surrounding the spaceport was a huddle of square flat-roofed buildings in a sea of sand, but it nevertheless had an air of burgeoning prosperity about it. Ground vehicles filled the streets, and there were already 4 arterial highways with companion mag railways snaking across the desert to the other large settlements. The Reformation had likely chosen the world for one of its best military academies for its harsh environment and lack of comforts, but it looked to Vincent like those circumstances may be altering. He didn't have any trouble settling down. When Vincent and Cadet returned to the passenger cabin, he found Isis Magdalene weeping while holding Tondre in one arm and Vi in the other, while the chief put his arms around them all, while the noble poise and advocate Marek Jameson recorded Lady Tashmenta Magdalene broke it fast. Tears streamed down Marek James's face as he strode forward and extended his hand towards Vincent. "This is the way among Terrans, is it not?" the man blubbered. Vincent reached out and took his hand, saying, "Yes, this is how we do it."
"We'll meet again," Vi said, with the cheer and Vincent thought that was inborn of her. "I'll call you as much as you want."
Vincent shook the weeping father's hand while Cadet flashed past him and threw his wings over the embracing children.
"I know you have to," the boy croaked, "but I wish you weren't going. I wish you would stay, and we could stay all together forever."
"We shall always be together," Isis Magdalene sobbed, "in our hearts." Love she was, for she was one with the day. Courage she grew, though she did not see. Farewell they bid, for they shall again see her one day. Remembered she is, and the future she does not flee, Jason recited. Jason recited, and flashed her a grin when she pulled back enough to see it. "We can put it off a little longer. Traditionally, we're supposed to see you to your house." That set off another round of weeping, and Vincent found himself embraced between Marek James and Tashmenta Magdalene. And it was some time before Isis Magdalene said, "No, no, if I pull you beyond the store, I shall try to pull you along until I enroll at the academy. No, farewell is farewell. May your wells never go dry." It took more hugs and handshakes and tears before Vincent once again cycled the boarding ramp closed, and he could imagine Isis Magdalene standing on the landing pad, waving as their shuttle dwindled into a speck before it disappeared into the sky of her new world. End of chapter. I'd quickly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Casper Arnholt, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.